Shocking details are emerging surrounding the killing of 3 hostages by Israeli Defense Forces, which IDF officials now say violated the military's rules of engagement. Joining me now from Tel Aviv, NBC's Hala Garani. Hala, welcome. So what is the IDF now saying about how these 3 young men were killed?
Well, you can only imagine the anguish of the families when they hear the details of how their loved ones were killed. They had made it all this time in captivity alive. And according to an IDF official who was speaking to reporters, forces under intense pressure in the Gaza Strip, meters from an IDF position, saw these 3 individuals come out, all without shirts, holding a stick with a white cloth attached, so a surrender flag, essentially. A soldier feeling threatened opened fire. 2 of the 3, we don't know the names of the 2 here, you're putting their pictures up on the screen, were killed immediately. Another was injured, ran back into the building that they had emerged from. A cry for help was heard in Hebrew, which is also adding to the consternation of the families here, because clearly one of these hostages at least was speaking in Hebrew and not in Arabic, and that the battalion commander at that point issued a ceasefire order. But there was another, quote, burst of fire toward the 3rd figure, and that's when that 3rd person was killed. Again, we don't know which one was killed after having run back into the building. We don't know which 2 were immediately shot down, but you have some tremendous anger and frustration being expressed by the families of the hostages still in detention. We understand 128 still inside the Gaza Strip, and they are gathering at what has now been called Hostage Square. They are vowing to set up camp in front of government offices until there is a plan that is laid out by the government of Benjamin Netanyahu to get their loved ones out. I should note the 3 who were killed tragically weren't the only people who were killed whose death got a lot of attention and reaction. There was also the cameraman for Al Jazeera, Samer Abu Dakka. He was killed and for several hours waited for emergency services to get to him, and they were not able to save his life. Meantime, briefly, and that's the funeral, by the way, that was being held for Samer Abu Dakka inside of Gaza. The National Security Advisor is saying that he met with the Mossad chief. There are reports, perhaps, that these talks to come up with some sort of ceasefire arrangement are gaining new momentum. That is the hope, at least. This is what Jake Sullivan said about meeting with the head of Mossad in Tel Aviv. Listen.
My meeting with the director of the Mossad last night, we were supposed to meet for about 45 minutes. We ended up meeting for more than twice that because we had a very detailed and intense conversation about how to move forward to try to secure the release of all of the hostages. Ultimately, that will be something that we have to work in a very sensitive way between the U.S. and Israel, working with Qatar, with Egypt, with other actors. And so I will leave that conversation where it belongs, in those sensitive channels.
All right. So obviously for the hostages' families and many others in Gaza that really want the fighting to stop, these will be some crucial days. We'll be looking out for any signs that a new ceasefire deal might be in the works, Alex.